Well, welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson, and thanks so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers. Is a talk show that we discuss so many of the issues facing boomers, their parents, and an aging population. And we've had on some great guests, have got great input. I'm pretty excited. The show is now on iTunes, so you can go to iTunes and listen to it. Hopefully you'll go there and subscribe, and you could get the shows automatically, and love to hear your input and even review it. We'd love for you to do that. It's also on Spreaker. It's on all sorts of podcasts as well. So again, thanks so much for joining us. We always have great guests, but I'm especially excited about our guest today. Her name is Leslie Whiting. Leslie not only is an experienced insurance agent in long-term care, but also a good friend. So I'm thrilled to have her on. Leslie has been dedicated to serving individuals, families, and groups on proper planning for long-term care. She started her career with GE Financial, and within the first 2 years became a district manager and trainer for new agents. She founded Long-Term Care Options so she could offer her clients one-stop shopping on all the financial products relating to long-term care planning, as well as guidance on care coordination to help clients have the option of maintaining well-run home care. So, Leslie, great to have you on again.
Thank you, Frank. Good to be with you, and thank you for the great introduction.
Well deserving. So, I know we'll get into some things as it relates to trends and costs and all of that. But tell us, just do the best you can to explain what long-term care insurance is.
Sure. It's a way of buying discounted dollars to pay for future costs of long-term care. And though most people buy it in their 50s, I have people buy it younger and I have people buy it older. And the reason they do it is not because they love insurance or having more of it, but because when they look at what the dollar spent on long-term care is in the future with the trends of cost, which I know we'll talk about, it's so incredibly higher that they're willing to pay a premium to buy dollars that are discounted, that are much less expensive than what the future costs are, given that, sad but true, the odds of needing long-term care, generally 50 to 80% for most people, i.e., the only people that don't need long-term care are ones that die quickly. And for everyone else, to some degree, they die slowly and need some form of care. That could be 90 days, and it could be 9 years. And for most folks, it's 3 to 4 years. And that doesn't mean you're really bad off or you had a severe stroke or you had severe dementia. Often it's just you slowed down and need some companion care, someone to make sure you're safe in your own home. And as simple as that is, as you know, that runs $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year these days. So most folks aren't prepared for that over a length of time of a few years, so that's where they choose to buy some insurance to pay for that. And then they get a monthly stream of income that pays for it, and then they can choose to get care wherever they want. The money's coming in, the dollars on a monthly basis are coming in, and most folks will choose home care, and then some people it's more appropriate to be in an assisted living or a nursing home, and it'll pay for that as well in any state, in any U.S. territory, and some plans even cover a bit of international coverage. So I hope that's kind of a new way of describing it.
Yeah, so you had mentioned, you threw out some numbers there, 50,000, 80,000, 100,000. I'm sure there's those listening that go, what are you talking about? So can you be a little more specific? Tell us about, I know that costs are definitely increasing. I know you have some statistics for us that actually show kind of the trends and the costs in home care and assisted living. So why don't you go through that?
Sure. And, I'll be kind of responding to that on, my current trends in the areas that I generally work in. And then a good source for listeners, too, is to go to kind of the leader in the industry, which in the insurance business in long-term care is Genworth, Genworth, and they have a cost of care survey, and you can go to genworth.com/cost of care, and you can pull up your state and look at where the costs are. The reason why I gave such huge variations in home care is because home care has the most variations of costs. Facilities are a bit more straightforward, $80,000 to $100,000 for nursing home. You're only there, no one wants to go there. You're only there if you need skilled care every day. And the only variations are a few incidentals and whether you have a semi-private room or a private room. Then assisted living, which has an access generally to a 24-hour nurse and visitations, from doctors, but it's not 24-hour where you need it continually. And so they're a little less expensive. Those in the Northern California area are anywhere from $60,000 to $90,000 a year. That'll depend a lot on how big your room is and how many flowers they have outside and some of the amenities. And then home care has a great dependence on whether we hire independent caregivers, and we're fortunate enough to find someone that's recommended that will come to live in our home, and she becomes part of our family, and she might stay in the extra bedroom, and we pay her a straight salary, and she kind of takes care of everything. And I don't mean to say men don't do this, but it's generally women.
Right.
And then sometimes we're not that lucky, or it's not appropriate, and we need to call on the expertise of a home health care agency. And then we pay them, and that would run significantly more. The reason being is they put a lot of energy into bonding people and hiring really experienced people and covering insurances and liabilities and payroll and do a lot of the logistics. When we look at the hourly cost, that's going to be, in my area anyway, about $28 an hour. If you hire them for 24 hours, you're getting to about $9,000 a month. If you need skilled care, it would run a little bit more.
I wanted to make sure we clarify when you're talking about home care, even though the term care is used here, there's been, and we've actually had Bob Nations on the on our show recently, who kind of explained the difference between the two. But you're mainly talking about those where it's just more supervision and someone coming out and just providing assistance with activities of daily living, not nurses. These are just
Correct.
Caregivers, right?
Correct. 95% of long-term care dollars are spent on non-skilled care. So we don't generally need a nurse to come. That's, less than 4.5% of the time. If that is the case, of course, that will drive the price up. But most of these dollars I'm suggesting the $9,000 a month from an agency for 24-hour care. That's strictly non-skilled care and needing help with activities of daily living. And that woman is getting, the agency is collecting about $28 an hour, and the woman's maybe making about $20 an hour. So, even though $9,000 a month seems like a lot of money, and it is, that woman who's providing that level of care is bringing home about $20 an hour, which, you know, is a lot to ask for the care that they provide. The only thing that would be less expensive than that is homemaker care. That tends to be what people need prior to needing help with activities of daily living, where they need some companion care or help with cooking and shopping and preparing meals and just things around the house. And that can lower the cost a little bit too. But agencies provide that level of care too, because that's part of the beginning continuum of going from a state of independence to a state of dependence, where you can't live alone and you need a little supervision. And, of course, as time goes by, that could make us need assisted living or nursing home or more advanced skilled care. Usually it does get more advanced as time goes by.
I know that people that aren't as educated on long-term care insurance might, you know, I'm sure you hear all the time, well, you know, my dad's got Medicare, isn't that cover it? I mean, I'm sure it's a daily thing that you hear, and that's not the case here. I mean, that's health care insurance mainly for the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I mean, the only good news is that I hear it less frequently than I used to.
Yeah.
Because
of shows like ours, right?
Well, experience and trends and education, and you know, that I will say the government and Social Security and Medicare and Consumer Watch organizations, they have done a good job of educating people, and they drive home the point that your regular health care insurance or Medicare is not long-term care insurance. People can get the wrong idea because if they read the outline of coverage, it'll say we cover skilled nursing. And what they're referring to there is a brief, acute, medically necessary stay, generally after a hospitalization. A good example would be a fall or a stroke, where you're in the hospital and you're in intensive care and you're needing doctors. And then after they discharge you from that intensive care, then you move into some kind of rehab hospital, and that's what the outline of coverage is referring to as a skilled nursing. And again, they're going to help you get better in a reasonable and customary time. If you don't get better, then they will stop paying. And that's mainly what acute means. It's temporary. It's to make you get better. It's to restore you where you were. It's generally in the couple of week time frames. And
we might have lost Leslie here. Leslie, you there? All right, let's see if we could get her back here. It's technology, fun stuff. Oh, I'll see if we could get her right back. If you're just listening, we have Leslie Whiting, who's talking about long-term care insurance. I'm going to try to get her back here.
Hello.
Hey, we lost you there, but got you right back, and we're live here with Leslie Whiting. A little technology glitch, but got her back. So, Leslie, as it relates to premiums, I mean, you know, I'm sure there's questions you get going, well, how much could long-term care insurance cost me? All right, and there's a lot of variables there. So why don't you go over those variables and also talk about cost of premiums. Could they go up? Why don't we get into that a little bit?
Sure. I think a good introduction to that is for people to understand the difference between long-term care insurance premiums which are offered by life insurance companies and regular health care insurance that most people have that are offered by health insurance companies. Certainly people are concerned about both of those premiums going up, but they're distinctly different. In our regular health care insurance, we tend to have a rate increase every year we get older. They raise our premium, and with all of the unfortunate trends in the health insurance environment, from CEO salaries to the way doctors are incentivized to provide, more care, the premiums are just skyrocketing. And they will, I believe, continue to, hopefully not for the less legitimate reasons that I mentioned, but for the legitimate reasons that as the cost of medical care goes up, you can count on your premiums going up continually. And then we're in the system, of course, where we do have to wait for them to say what they'll cover, what they don't. It's really a very challenging network. In long-term care, it's extremely straightforward. We're dealing with life insurance companies who have been around for 100-plus years. All the major companies you've heard about also offer long-term care. And they're used to paying when you die. That's pretty clear-cut. They pay $1 amount when you die. Now, if we move into long-term care, what they do is they pay a monthly amount when you start to need help with 2 or more activities of daily living. And that's when a stream of income will start in. Most of my clients buy $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month in today's dollars. And that will continue to come as long as they bought the length of time that it will cover. So, as I mentioned before, 3 or 4 years is sort of a standard time frame of a policy paying out, because that's what normally people buy, because that's an average stay. So you're not going to have rate increases in long-term care as that happens because you're needing claim, you're on claim, or you're needing care. What the long-term care design is that we know the cost of care is going to increase. It's going up. The Genworth cost of care in California shows that home care is escalating at about 2% a year, whereas facility is escalating at about 5% per year. So what we do is when we buy the premium, we pay extra to have that, say, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 of initial coverage grow by 2% or 3% or 4% or 5%. So that it keeps up with the cost of health care rising. That way, when we own our policies in the 50s, but we don't need care until we're 80s, our benefits have sometimes doubled or tripled or quadrupled in that 30-year time span, depending on the inflation protection. But our premium does not go up every year because of it. It's a level premium, but it escalates in benefits, but we pay extra for that premium. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Did a great job of explaining that. It's interesting because when someone buys life insurance, usually it is, it might be a younger person, married, maybe not married, but could be married, may have had their first child, and whoever is the major breadwinner in the home, and it could be both, which is very common today, where they go out, they decide to get insurance because there are people that are dependent on them. They have children dependent, spouse, whatever, people dependent on them, and they get insurance just in case something were to happen to them. All right. Now, as you get older, this could be somebody in their 30s or even 40s, but as you age, and now you're in your 50s, 60s, many times those children are now, grown. They're hopefully taking care of themselves. They might be off of their parents' payroll, and there actually may be less of a need for life insurance and a greater need for long-term care insurance. I know
what
that
you're kind of describing is the cycle of life.
Right. It's a cycle of
when
life.
Teenagers were younger, we definitely wanted to make sure we had good car insurance on them.
Yeah.
And when we need to get the kids through college and we need to make sure the mortgage gets paid before one of the spouses or the breadwinner would die, life insurance is very essential and provides a lot of peace of mind. And once the kids are out of school or college, and once the mortgage is either handled or there's a stream of income that looks secure that could handle that, that's when it's very prudent to, I'm not suggesting they let go of their life insurance, but it's not as essential. What I help clients look at, because I do sell life insurance, I can sell any form of insurance in the life and health and disability realm. So I often help people look at what's the most essential premium dollars given what my priorities are in life right now, and the odds of them happening, and the consequences that would impact my loved ones if something were to happen. So what you've just described is the life insurance, the consequences lessen because the kids are all right, hopefully. But long-term care, when you get into your 50s and 60s, is normally the time where hopefully the kids are out of school and they're independent and moving on to their own careers, and the mortgage is in a good way starting to be handled. Then that's when people look at long-term care because they realize if they keep living and they live into their 80s and they don't die young, the odds of needing long-term care are between 50 and 80%. Every decade you live past age 65, the odds of needing care go up by about 10%. And then they look at not only the cost, but what are the consequences to my spouse or my kids or my partner or my friends of not having the coverage. And that's not just a financial concern, that's a care coordination concern. If we want to stay home and handle home care, yes, it's expensive, but even harder is to manage it and to find reliable caregivers and have a professional oversee it so that we can create healthcare setting in the home. And you need a professional, a form of a care coordinator to manage that for you. So when people see that and learn that, and they often learn it from going through it with their parents and seeing how hard it is to manage it in addition to what the costs are, that's when they wake up to realizing long-term care insurance is probably absolutely the most essential coverage they need, given that they have a body and it's in its fifth and sixth decade.
So we have just another minute here. So quickly tell people about, there are policies out there that kind of combine both, correct?
Yes. The market has changed where, since we're dealing with life insurance companies, there's a great variety of policies these days. Some cover only long-term care. Some have a single premium life insurance, and it gives you a death benefit, and it's always available to you, but if you can use it for long-term care as well. So depending on my client's already existing life insurance or how important that is or their family history of how likely they might need care. Those will all influence what kind of product I recommend for folks.
Great. Leslie, it's been great. So tell our listeners if they want to get a hold of you or go to your website, learn more, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. I have a toll-free number and a website. My name is my website, so that's easy. LeslieWhiting.com, LeslieWhiting, and my toll-free number is 866-446-5824. And if I may say, Frank, your listeners, you're welcome to call me to just know whether you might qualify health-wise and financially. That's mainly the initial call to find out, might I qualify given my pre-existing condition, and what's the affordability to where I could see if I could check into the coverage. That's a good call to make.
Great. Thanks so much, Leslie. As always, it's great to have you on. I know we'll have you on again, our long-term care insurance expert here on the Aging Boomers. So thanks very much for joining us, and make sure go to iTunes. Just go to iTunes. Just go and search for the Aging Boomers. You could also, right on your iPhone or your Android phone, we have an app. Just go search apps, the Aging Boomers. You could download it and listen to each and every show. And we have experts like Leslie each and every week. So again, thank you for joining us. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all soon.